Chapter 6493. Until now, John still couldn't believe that the man in front of him had taken the legendary remodeling pill. Just by listening to the effect, one can tell that this kind of pill is extremely precious. Even his father might not be willing to give it to his son. Not to mention that the man in front of him has been the biggest enemy of the warrior's den for hundreds of years. However, after taking the pill, he immediately felt that the wound on his left wrist suddenly became hot and itchy, which was very uncomfortable. Charlie was naturally not as considerate to John as he was to Duncan. Ito Yuhiko or Roma. When they took the remodeling pill, Charlie specially asked them to take the medicine in a bathtub full of mud to prevent their discomfort. John naturally didn't have such a good life, so he could only bear this feeling. Soon, his wound was like tens of thousands of ants constantly gnawing on it. Painful and itchy. And it was getting more and more swollen. Just when he was in great pain, he suddenly found that his flat wound suddenly began to bulge. Then, a small bud-like thing grew out at the top of the bulge. The bud continued to grow and grow like a germinating seed. And then 5 very thin buds grew out at the tip. At this time, John had completely ignored the pain and itchiness that was scratching his heart and liver, but stared at the bud in horror. He had already seen that the 5 small buds grew on the big bud, and it had already taken the shape of a palm. His eyes widened, staring at the miniature palm, and then looked at Charlie, muttering, Is this really a newly grown left hand?" Charlie smiled and said, "It's genuine. In a few minutes, your left hand will be restored to its original state." John was already extremely excited in his heart. However, in addition to being excited, the look in his eyes when he looked at Charlie became more puzzled. After pondering for a long time, he asked, "Sir, I really don't understand. Since you are an enemy of the warrior's den, why did you give such a precious elixir to me for nothing?" Charlie smiled and said, "I am not an enemy of your warrior's den, but an enemy of Victoria. In my opinion, the other members of the warrior's den are all poor creatures who have been poisoned and enslaved by her." After that, he looked at John and said, "And I know why you lost your left hand. It must be my actions in Duke Mining that made Victoria lose face, and she had to drag you out to take the blame." When John heard this, he thought to himself, "Doesn't this person know that I am a descendant of the Lord? Does he still think that I am the same as those cavalry guards?" Thinking of this, he quickly followed Charlie's words and said, "Sir, you are so right. We are in this environment and have no choice. We have to do whatever the Lord tells us to do. She wanted me to use my left hand as a price, so I could only cut off my left hand obediently." Charlie said with sympathy, "You are really pitiful to be controlled by this old witch who has lived for 400 years. Don't you think?" John subconsciously did not dare to say such treasonous words. But the current situation was different. This person seemed to regard him as a victim of the Lord and gave him an extremely precious reshaping pill. Although he did not dare to fight against the Lord with him, he must not say anything bad. So, he sighed and said with a sad face, "You are so right. This person has a twisted mind and is cruel and ruthless. In her eyes, people like us are like ants on the roadside. She can step on a few of them at any time when she is in a bad mood." As he said that, he couldn't help but look at his left hand. At this time, the granulation had completely grown into the shape of a palm. But the size of this palm was still very small, even smaller than that of a newborn baby. However, although the palm was pitifully small, the nerve seemed to have been connected to him.